Benjamin Franklin said that there were only two certainties in life: death and taxes. I disagree. I believe there are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and failure. And since as teens, we don't have to worry about the first two yet, so we can worry about the last. And since failure is inevitable and there's no point in running away from it, why not fail effectively? Good morning, I'm Rishikesh Sagin, and I've been a loser from age 5 when I lost a clay modeling competition to age 16 where I lost a story writing competition. I was tempted to say that I took all my failures in stride, that I shrugged them all off without a scratch, but that would just be lying. Up until age 14, I took failures like how you'd expect a 14-year-old to take it, by diving into the world of video games because losses in games didn't hurt as much as losses in real life. Forget competitions, I stopped going outside altogether, and my screen time soared to about 12 to 14 hours a day. It got so bad to the point where my mother used to come into my room and open the windows. I used to leap back and snarl at her like because a beam of sunlight nearly touched my skin. In all seriousness though, if it wasn't for my mom and dad who told me when enough was enough, I would probably still be in that exact same position. And for that, I thank them. And so, as a newly sober boy, I rekindled my love for reading and writing, and I became obsessed with the concept of learning from your errors, the art of failure, if you will. And it was convenient for me, right? I was losing so many times, I thought, why at least not learn something while I'm at it? So I read both fiction and non-fiction, from Socrates to Ryan Holiday, and compiled all my findings into one gargantuan list that I condensed into this speech. I'm a biology student, and it's drilled into my head that the first step of classification is identification, so let's start off with identifying the failure. This shouldn't come as news to you. We are human beings, not machines. We are biased creatures, and we choose the path of least resistance unconsciously. It is so very easy to blame all our problems on someone or something else. It is human. But I have a question. How does blaming someone else help you in improving your skills? The short answer is it doesn't. We have to force our minds to be objective and find out the real reason why we lost. And to do so, I've made a method called the 5 why method. It is easier to explain with an example, so let me use one that actually happened in my life. Suppose you submit a short story to a writing competition and lost, not even in the top 1,000. You can either say, it's a judge's fault, they have no taste in literature. But you push the blame on someone else, you don't review your work, you don't learn anything. Or you could review your work and ask, I lost. Why? Because the plot was boring. Why? Because the pacing was off. Why? Because the characters were uninteresting. Why? Because they had no motivations and dynamics. Why? Because I didn't plan their motivations and dynamics. Suddenly the reason I lost looks so very obvious, doesn't it? The thing is, we have to stop making broad generalizations, because when we do, it's easier to point the blame on someone else, and we have to dig deeper into our cause of failure and find out the base or the real reason why. For the math students out there, think of it like division, if you will. Cut it down to the smallest possible number, then use it in the original equation. So we have now identified our failure. The next question is, how do we deal with obstacles? I would like to start this segment off with my personal favorite quote of all time. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This was a quote from Marcus Aurelius, a man who was far ahead of his time. What he essentially said was that human beings could make every obstacle into opportunities. And the best example is us students. During the pandemic, we swapped in an instant to online learning, something that was in science fiction novels not so far in the distant past. So humans are blessed with this insane ability to adapt, right? So how do we use it effectively and make our obstacles our opportunities? The key ingredient here is gratitude. We have to be grateful for our obstacles. Wait, what do you mean? How can I be grateful for something that literally stops me from getting my goals? Let's use fat loss as an example, something I and many others struggle with. Let's say at the beginning of your journey, you think of 2 reasons why you're grateful for your weight. Reason 1, the fat lets me lift heavier weights in the gym, hence letting me gain extra strength. Reason 2, the fat lets me learn discipline by dieting and exercising. You see what we did there? What we have essentially done here is we have turned this uphill battle into a downhill one by making the rewards more appealing than the effort of the journey. You see, you and I are so used to seeing our obstacles as problems that we can't see them as anything but problems. Ironically, though, it's only when we see them as opportunities, something to look forward to, do they stop being problems. My father always tells me that you have to use criticism to your advantage. But I asked, how do you do that? I think 4 years later, after that conversation we had, I found out the answer. Just hear me out. Criticism is a byproduct of failure. In fact, it will come even if you don't fail and just put your work out there for people to see. And it, like people, can vary vastly. Some are just harsh words to push you down, while some are invaluable pieces of information that will make you a better person. The invaluable piece of information we are looking for is what we call, or what I call, objective criticism. Let's use that short story as an example again. Suppose you put that same short story into an internet forum for feedback, and you get 3 types of responses. Response 1, this is the worst piece of literature I have ever seen, I hate you for writing this. Response 2, this piece was average at most, the first act was extremely tedious. And response 3, this is the best thing I've ever seen, are you the second coming of Shakespeare? We might be tempted to say that only response 3 understood our absolute and utter genius, but other than your ego, is it really boosting anything? No, it's not. However different response 1 and response 3 might seem, they both are fundamentally the same. They both are subjective criticism, as in they talk about the person's feelings on your work. Can you change the other person's feelings on your work? No, you can't. However, we should focus on response 2 because it is the only one, in my opinion, that gave objective criticism. Something tangible that we can improve upon, and hence is the only one with any sort of value. I used story writing here because that's what I do, but you can swap out these activities for any skill you're trying to master, whether that be arts or astrophysics. Criticism will always be there. The trick here is to push down that egotistical little child in your head that tells you your work is perfect. Because I believe it's only through humility that we learn. It's only when we accept that we are not good enough yet do we permit ourselves to grow and one day be good enough. One caveat that I have to add about all these methods, however, is that they take time. They take a lot of time. Results don't come early. In fact, it'll come extremely late. But the lessons of your failure compound over time to give you exponential growth in the future. Something, the graph looks like that. And that's it. We're done. If you follow these 3 steps effectively, you are an effective failure. A person who can make every pushback a push forward, every hurdle a stepping stone, and every obstacle an opportunity. You know, you might even find yourself winning sometime. Just one more thing before I conclude. These tips only matter so long as you keep trying, so long as you keep failing, if you will. There's usually a point after a particularly harsh loss where your own mind can turn traitor. You see, the terrifying thing is your own mind knows you. It knows you very well and can leech off your insecurities, whether that be a stutter or whether that be, say, I'm not good at English, and tell you all the reasons in the world and more to give up. And the temptation will be there. And some of us might just succumb to that temptation. These crippling losses are like fresh cuts. Some might just be wounds that heal away, but some might leave scars that last a lifetime. But whether wound or scar, both fade with time. And the only thing that remains after it fades, after it passes through, is you, with your knowledge, experience, and skill. So, to end this off, I would like to leave you with a quote that I think every effective failure, winner, and person in this world should take to heart. It is always darkest before dawn. Thank you.